In the mythical realm of Greece, where legends came to life and the divine danced with the mortal, there appeared a creature both magnificent and terrifying by nature. The Sphinx, with her lion's body crowned by the head of a woman, made her presence known at the gates of the ancient city of Thebes. As twilight descended, casting long shadows upon the land, she settled on a rocky outcrop, her gaze sweeping across the city below. With an air of mystery and an aura of the timeless, she seemed both guardian and judge, ready to fulfill the role she had come to play. The Sphinx's form was an enigma wrapped in myth. Her body, powerful and leonine, spoke of strength and ferocity, while her serene human visage suggested wisdom far beyond that of common mortals. Perched high above the city, she watched the comings and goings of Theban travelers as they approached the city's gates. Her eyes, aglow with an otherworldly light, reflected the warm hues of the setting sun, amber and deep red blending in an ethereal symphony. It wasn't long before the Sphinx initiated her encounter with the world of men. A band of Theban travelers, unaware of the challenge lying in wait, approached cautiously. The air was filled with an unease that clung to the breeze, as whispers of her arrival drifted through the neat rows of olive groves and along the well-trodden paths. Travelers paused and exchanged nervous glances, spurred on by the tales spun from the oldest of ancient epics. From her vantage point, the Sphinx declared her challenge. Her voice was calm yet commanding, echoing through the twilight. The riddle served as a passage requirement for all who dared approach, her guardian's challenge that must be answered correctly to proceed into Thebes. Those audacious enough to attempt her riddle faced the stone-cold truth of her deadly consequences. Fail, and they would never reach the city. News of the Sphinx spread quickly, carried on the tongues of awed and frightened Thebans who lived in the shadow of her riddle. The initial whispers burgeoned into loud murmurs, vibrant tales of a mythical creature halting the heartbeats of those who dared to answer. The city's atmosphere turned foreboding under the weight of these ominous tales, as mothers whispered warnings to their children and warriors shared stern looks over aged wine. Rumors of the Sphinx's terrifying powers continued to circulate, painting vivid pictures of her merciless wrath upon those who failed. Such tales thickened the atmosphere of apprehension among the Theban citizens, for the Sphinx's ruthless challenge had become a grim reminder of fate's unyielding hand. The once vibrant road that led into Thebes now seemed a path fraught with peril, each step echoing the heart's pounding beat. To the inhabitants of Thebes, the Sphinx became an agent of destiny, infusing the everyday with a solemn awareness of the unknown. Her riddle sat at the heart of their fears, unyielding and inscrutable. Its presence at the city's threshold was a test none could escape, a mysterious endless trial that guarded the passage into the city, like the decades-old myths of relentless gods commanding nature's gods. Fury. In this tranquil yet stilted atmosphere, the Sphinx's presence made the city simmer with tension and anticipation, a foreboding undercurrent flowing just beneath the surface. Her challenge had established itself as a formidable rite of passage, a necessary test that mirrored the complexities and trials tucked within every human journey. Little did they know, amid the dread, a hero was destined to rise and face the Sphinx. For now she watched and waited, her enigmatic nature weaving the first threads of fate into the Theban story. As twilight gave way to night, the city of Thebes sat on the precipice of transformation, teetering between the old and the new. The presence of the Sphinx marked a change in the air, a shift in the town's spirit as it lay beneath the watchful gaze of the timeless creature. The mysterious figure on the rocky outcrop signaled not only a challenge to travelers, but also a prelude to the unfolding legend that would soon change their lives forever. The sun was high in the clear spring sky, casting a soft yet ominous light over the pathway leading to the gates of Thebes. Here, the Sphinx sat, her lion's body solid and unmoved, with her enigmatic eyes fixed on each traveler who dared approach. The riddle she posed was as complex and inscrutable as the smile that graced her lips, a blend of myth and mystery known only to those brave enough to face her challenge. A lone traveler dared to climb the well-trodden path to where the Sphinx waited. His heart pounded in rhythm with his cautious steps, each closer moment revealing the Sphinx in all her fearsome beauty. Her voice, a low and haunting melody, resonated through the air as she posed the riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? The traveler listened intently, the depth of the question echoing in his mind, capturing the essential nature of human life in its simplicity and subtlety. Pondering the complexity of the riddle, the traveler found himself swept into a labyrinth of thoughts. He considered the life cycle of living beings, the stages they pass through, and the nature of time itself. He sought for an answer that would grant him safe passage, yet each possibility slipped through his grasp like sand through fingers. The more he pondered, the more elusive the solution seemed. Finally, with a resolve drawn from desperation, he voiced his answer, echoing his thoughts into the stillness. The Sphinx gazed at him with an unreadable expression, her eyes reflecting the ancient paths of wisdom and enigma. Upon hearing the incorrect answer, she let out a low, mournful sound, as her verdict manifested not in words, but in silence, the kind of silence that foreshadowed only sorrow. The weight of failure descended upon the traveler, sealing his fate in the history of myths that Thebes would tell for generations. The traveler's demise served as a grim reminder of the Sphinx's power and the fatality that awaited those who faced her without success. News of these tragic encounters traveled swiftly among the Thebans, weaving stories that fluttered through market squares and whispered halls. Each tale added to the mythic aura surrounding the Sphinx and her devastating riddle, drawing a shadow over the city like a gathering storm. As more names were inscribed into the annals of failure, fear coiled tightly around the hearts of the Theban people, leaving an imprint as indelible as the Sphinx herself. With each passing day, the weight of despair grew heavier. The sight of the pile of bones at the foot of the Sphinx's rocky pedestal was a stark warning to all who approached. It was a testament to the unsolved enigma, a morbid marker of the cost of ignorance, and the harsh toll levied by the guardian of secrets. Thoughts of attempting the riddle filled many with dread, and the daunting image of the Sphinx reached every corner of Thebes, painted vividly in the minds of its inhabitants. Yet, amid the grim tales and relentless despair, a faint whisper of hope lingered, a belief that somewhere, someone would rise to answer her challenge. The overwhelming fear was matched only by the fleeting glimmer of aspiration that perhaps a hero would finally end the Sphinx tyranny. It was this tenuous thread of hope that wove together the courage of a city on the brink of despair, the dream of release from the stranglehold of mystery and fear. Hidden within the murmur of the wind and the rustling leaves, the narrative of Thebes found its expression in the people, desperate for salvation, yearning with every fiber of their being for a resolution. The stage was set, the players in position, and as the sun dipped toward the horizon, the promise of rising hope seemed just beyond the coming twilight. In the lands far from Thebes, a young prince named Oedipus made his way through the verdant countryside. Born under the shadow of a great prophecy, Oedipus had left his home in Corinth after a shattering revelation from the oracle at Delphi. It was told that he was destined to slay his father and marry his mother. Fearing the fulfillment of such a dreadful fate, Oedipus had fled Corinth, determined never to return. His resolve was steadfast, and as he traveled, the burdens of fate weighed heavily upon his conscience, propelling him forward to unknown lands. As Oedipus journeyed, news of the fearsome Sphinx reached his ears. The tales described a creature of terrible power, perched like an ominous sentinel outside the city gates of Thebes. Those who dared approach her were confronted with an enigmatic riddle that none had been able to solve. According to travelers, failing the Sphinx's challenge brought only one outcome: death. Yet where others saw despair, Oedipus perceived a fateful opportunity. Here, at last, might be a trial worthy of his prodigious intellect and courage, a chance to divert the path that destiny seemed to have laid before him. With determined strides, Oedipus continued on his course toward Thebes. The path wound through fields and meadows, soft under the first light of dawn. As he walked, Oedipus encountered those departing the ill-famed city. Their expressions, etched with fear and apprehension, only fueled his resolve. They told tales of a city gripped by terror, its people cowering under the shadow of a riddle they could not solve. Oedipus listened intently, his mind intensely focused on the challenge ahead. He knew that within Thebes lay the pivot of his fortune. Whether doom or deliverance would follow, only time could reveal. The road Oedipus traveled reflected the changing tones of the landscape. As he moved closer to the city, fields turned to rougher ground, the lush green giving way to rugged terrain. Yet he pressed on, the soft oranges and gentle reds of the morning sky painting a hopeful path before him. The tales of the Sphinx hung in the air, a potent reminder of the danger, but Oedipus felt a growing resolve within him. A sense of anticipation mingled with the dawn light, guiding him toward an inevitable confrontation. Finally, the gates of Thebes loomed on the horizon, imposing and ancient. With each step toward them, Oedipus could feel the weight of his destiny drawing near. The city walls stood silent, but beyond them lay the whispers of challenge and history, waiting to unveil themselves. Oedipus paused briefly before the gates, taking in the sight of the obstacles that could decide his future. The air was alive with the promise of trials to come, yet within Oedipus resided an unwavering belief, an echo of prophetic forces that had long shaped his journey. As dawn ceded to morning light, Oedipus stood poised at the threshold of Thebes, ready to face the Sphinx. His heart was steeled by the conviction that the riddle was not merely a barrier, but a key to his unfolding saga. In his resolve, there was no room for fear, only the calculated measure of a man who knew his challenge lay close at hand. Before him stretched a path not just toward a city, but into the very essence of fate itself. At the gates of the ancient city of Thebes, under the early morning sun, stood Oedipus, his shadow long against the dirt path. Before him, perched high upon her rocky outcrop, was the Sphinx, a creature of legend, her body a lion's and her face that of a woman. The mythical guardian's eyes were fixed on Oedipus, her stare as unyielding as the stone beneath her paws. Here, at this timeless juncture, the destinies of man and myth were set on a collision course. Without uttering a sound, the Sphinx emanated an air of commanding mystery. Her reputation for presenting a deadly riddle preceded her. Many had been her victims, failing to answer correctly and paying with their lives. Oedipus knew well the tales of travelers who had attempted the passage to Thebes, only to fall prey to her insidious challenge. Yet here he stood, resolute, the prophecy of his own life urging him onward. The moment stretched, the silence punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant sound of city life. The Sphinx began to speak, not with words, but through the haunting intensity of her presence. The riddle, known to many but solved by none, was the key to Thebes. The Sphinx's demand was simple: solve this enigmatic conundrum, or meet the same fate as those who had come before. Oedipus listened intently, his confidence unwavering despite the stakes. In his mind, echoes of the prophecy that had driven him from his homeland mingled with the immediate task at hand. The challenge was formidable, yet Oedipus's resolve was anchored in a profound belief that he was destined to transcend any test. This was more than simply answering a riddle. It was a trial of fate itself. The Sphinx spelled out the riddle, her voice woven with the threads of ages past. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? The simplicity of its words belied the complexity hidden within. Oedipus closed his eyes briefly, considering the question. His thoughts raced, analyzing each word, turning them over for hidden meaning. The cool breeze carried the scent of the open fields to him, a reminder of the endless possibilities that awaited beyond this moment. Tension hung in the air between them as the Sphinx, eternal and unyielding, awaited his answer. Her eyes never leaving his, she observed his every movement, weighing his determination against the countless who had stood where he stood now. Oedipus opened his eyes and met her gaze with equal intensity. A silent understanding passed between them. This was a dance of fate, an exchange as ancient as the myths themselves, and they were its chosen players. Contemplation wrapped around him like a cloak as Oedipus studied the essence of the riddle. He identified with its stages, seeing in them reflections of his past, present, and the potential future. His answer was not derived from intellect alone, but from a deep-seated instinct, a connection to the truth underlying the legend. This was his destiny, and in its embrace, he found clarity. The Sphinx waited, a silent sentinel atop her stone throne. Around them, the landscape seemed to hold its breath, the very earth anticipating the moment that would define both man and myth. The sun cast warm gold upon them, igniting the air with the fiery reds and soft yellows of early summer. Here, under this sky painted by the providence of time, Oedipus was poised to answer fate's call as his journey through life and legend reached a pivotal juncture. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its bright golden rays over the scene, Oedipus stood firm at the base of the rocky outcrop. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the significance of his next words poised to determine his fate and the fate of the city of Thebes. The Sphinx, her enigmatic gaze fixed upon him, remained tranquil yet intense, the picture of inscrutable patience. Around them, the air crackled with a tension born of long anticipation, as if the very world held its breath awaiting the unfolding of destiny. Oedipus closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself a moment of reflection, drawing upon all the knowledge and understanding he had gathered in his life. The riddle, deceptively simple yet profoundly complex, echoed silently in his mind. He had heard tales of its insurmountable challenge, of how countless others had faltered under its weight. Yet, within him burned a quiet confidence, a belief that he, unlike those before him, had grasped its true meaning. He chose his words meticulously, ensuring each was perfectly placed, as though weaving a tapestry of logic and intuition. "Man," he finally uttered, his voice steady and clear against the quiet murmur of the wind. It was a simple word, yet it encapsulated the riddle's essence, its layers unfurling like a delicate bloom to reveal the hidden depths beneath. In that singular moment, a shift occurred, both palpable and profound. The Sphinx, who had perched aloof and unattainable, now showed a flicker of something unexpected, an acknowledgement, perhaps, of the answer's correctness, silently affirming the unraveling of hers. Timeless mystery. Kai. The world around them seemed to pause, as if caught in a suspended breath. The answer cut through the charged atmosphere like sunlight breaking through clouds, altering the very fabric of the encounter. For Oedipus, this moment was not merely a triumph over the riddle but a pivotal juncture in his journey. It was as if an invisible weight had been lifted, the burden of uncertainty replaced with a newfound clarity. He stood there, at the intersection of past and future, acutely aware of the triumph and its implications. The Sphinx's reaction was subtle yet profound, a transformation within that transcended mere expression. The air, once static with possibility, now vibrated with the acceptance of resolution. The legendary riddle, a guardian of secrets for so long, was at last unraveled. Oedipus found himself contemplating the gravity of his achievement, the release of tension a testament to the power of knowledge and truth. The riddle's enigma, now dispelled, left room for reflection and a burgeoning sense of bittersweet victory. As the echoes of the answer faded, Oedipus looked upon the Sphinx with a mix of solemnity and understanding. This moment, etched in time, was a testament to human ingenuity and courage, a narrative as old as time itself. The resolution hung heavy in the air, yet beneath it lay a seed of new beginnings, a fresh canvas upon which the future could be painted. This space, charged with the energy of change, marked the end of an era and the beginning of another. With calm contemplation, Oedipus drew a deep breath, his thoughts turning towards the path that lay before him. The triumph was his, but the journey was far from over. Fate's tapestry was vast, and his role in it was only just beginning to unfold. As the sunlight warmed his face, he felt a quiet yet resolute determination to embrace whatever came next. In the moments that followed, a gentle breeze swept through, carrying with it whispers of change. The Sphinx, with her riddle dissolved, had now set into motion a new sequence of events. Oedipus's eyes steeled with determination, yet softened by the awareness of what was behind and what lay ahead, now turned towards Thebes. The city awaited him, its people unknowingly standing on the cusp of liberation and a new chapter in their storied existence. With the riddle solved, a profound silence envelops the air at the gates of Thebes. The Sphinx, long feared and revered as the guardian of this ancient city's secret, acknowledges her defeat. Her enigmatic gaze softens as she absorbs the momentous shift in her existence. The answer, so simple yet elusive, had remained veiled to all but this resolute traveler. As she stands upon her rocky perch, a wave of realization sweeps over her. Her purpose as the majestic riddle keeper is fulfilled, and her era has quietly come to an end. A deep breath fills the Sphinx's mighty chest as she contemplates the weight of her failure. Once a transfixing enigma on the horizon, she now finds herself at a crossroads. No longer will her riddle be the peril looming over Thebes. The answer uttered by Oedipus, a mere word, has lifted the veil of mystery under which she cloaked herself. It is a moment of introspection for this eternal guardian. Her familiar realm has shifted, leaving her without her sacred charge to protect. Thebans below may now walk free of fear, yet the Sphinx is left wondering about her place in this new world where her secret no longer holds sway. Gracefully, she retreats to the edge of the cliff, each step reverberating with the finality of her decision. There, on that precipice, she pauses, a figure poised for her last act. Beneath her, the city stretches out in quiet contemplation, its future now untethered from her watchful eye. Below, Oedipus watches, his triumph mingling with an understanding of the cost that comes with this victory. The sun hangs high, casting the Sphinx in radiant light, her silhouette stark and regal against the clear sky. With solemn resolve, the Sphinx stands where earth meets air, a guardian no more. In this silent communion with herself, the Sphinx ponders the sum of her existence. Her role had been to challenge, to guard, to preserve the riddle's mystery. In fulfilling this purpose, she had forged a connection with the city she overshadowed. Her duty had been clear, her path singular, yet even such timeless guardianship must yield to time's inexorable passage. Here, at the culmination of her fate, she steels herself within the quiet dignity befitting one who has long held sway over mortal fortunes. Her next act, decided and fixed within her heart, becomes her only path forward. Oedipus, observing the scene unfold, is struck by the gravity of the moment. His eyes follow the Sphinx as she becomes one with the air, her figure carving a graceful arc against the sky. This leap is not merely a descent, it is an ascension, a release into the ethereal unknown. The Sphinx decision is not one of despair, but of acceptance, an acknowledgement of her cycle's end. Her passing marks a solemn yet serene transition for the city she leaves behind, and for Oedipus, the liberator who bears witness to her end. The impact of the Sphinx's departure is felt beyond the boundaries of her rocky domain. An eerie calm blankets the landscape, a silence punctuated not by fear but by the resonant peace that follows the fulfillment of destiny. The watchers below, travelers and citizens alike, look on with mixed emotions, relief interlaced with a respectful acknowledgement of the loss of such a profound presence. The land, once shadowed by her gaze, now breathes freely under the unencumbered sun, its people unshackled from fear. As the final act unfolds, the Sphinx vanishes from mortal sight, her mighty form absorbed into legend and memory. Her body leaves no trace upon the earth. Instead, her essence dissipates like mist at dawn, leaving behind an inexplicable serenity. It is a quiet end to a storied chapter, one that will be recounted in hushed tones throughout Thebes and beyond. And so, the city stands at a threshold of new beginnings, emboldened by the triumph of Oedipus and the peace bequeathed by the Sphinx's departure. In this newfound tranquility, Thebes finds a moment suspended between past and future. Shadows of the Sphinx linger ephemeral, a reminder of the mantle once worn by a guardian who held the fate of many in her riddle. The ground where she lay dormant loses its spectral weight, as if acknowledging the start of a fresh narrative. As silence settles like dust, the scene slowly shifts focus to the gates of Thebes, where Oedipus stands, poised to enter a city forever changed. The news of the Sphinx's demise spread through Thebes like a warm summer breeze, a whisper of relief mingling with the initial disbelief. For so long, the city had been under the shadow of the Sphinx's terror, her presence a constant reminder of danger perched at the city gates. The sight of her monstrous form atop the rocky promontory had once instilled fear in even the bravest of hearts. But now, that fear had vanished along with her. The newfound safety inspired whispered conversations that grew into jubilant exclamations, a slow but unstoppable transition from dread to disbelief, and finally, cautious celebration. As daylight stretched across the city, Thebes began to awaken to a world unburdened by its monstrous guardian. The broad roads leading to the city gates, once deserted and shunned by even the most daring travelers, were now filled with the chatter of hesitant yet hopeful voices. Merchants, peddlers, and wanderers, emboldened by the news, ventured near the fabled gates, cautiously testing the reality of their newfound freedom. Slowly, an echo of life returned to Thebes, and the haunted looks worn by its people began to soften, replaced by the glimmer of hope and liberation. Oedipus, the man who solved the Sphinx riddle, entered Thebes not as an outsider but as a hero. His determined stride moved with a mixture of relief and purpose, aware of the significant change his presence heralded for the city. As he walked the path previously trodden by so many ill-fated travelers, he was met with a sea of curious and grateful faces. Though his actions had been pivotal, his demeanor remained humble, conscious of the weight of the prophecy he was intertwined with. Within the city walls, tales of the Sphinx's reign were recounted with a newfound sense of detachment, the horror once associated with her receding into memory. Stories of her deadly riddles, the countless victims, and the fear that hung like a shroud over the city were told not with trembling voices, but with an air of farewell to a long-endured nightmare. People of all walks gathered in clusters, sharing stories of despair that now seemed more bearable in the light of freedom. The newfound safety allowed the Thebans to reflect deeply on their liberation. It was as if a heavy veil had been lifted, and with it, a collective sigh of relief that resounded through the streets. Daily life, once overshadowed by an oppressive presence, began to unfurl in earnest. Fields were tended, Markets buzzed and children's laughter echoed once more. There was a quiet acknowledgement among the citizens of Thebes that they stood on the precipice of a new era. In the city's heart, an assembly of the Theban elders convened to extend formal gratitude to Oedipus. Their words were laden with sincerity, recognizing the gentle man who had brought them reprieve from their long-standing terror. They spoke of honor, duty, and leadership, weaving narratives of potential that centered on the young traveler who had stepped into the fold as a savior. The elders, wise and discerning, pondered the future with Oedipus in deliberation, considering the prophecy that hung in the air like a specter. Discourses soon turned toward the future, with Oedipus at the center of contemplative debates. Whispers of his potential leadership took root among the people, their voices carrying a blend of hope and hesitancy. The idea of Oedipus leading, not just as a hero but as a ruler, incited dreams of prosperity and a peaceful era untethered from the chains of past fears. It was an age defined by transition, one that promised growth and redefinition with each passing day. As thoughts shifted toward what might yet come, the city of Thebes found itself drawn into a contemplative rhythm, a dance of cautious optimism. There was a keen understanding that the future was undefined, ripe with possibilities yet holding the echoes of prophecy. Still, the atmosphere was one of hopeful anticipation, a reflection of renewal under the summer sun. Oedipus's quiet contemplation as he stood amongst the varied voices of Thebes promised much, hinting at a destiny yet to be fully understood. The legacy of the Sphinx faded into the annals of history, her formidable shadow now a chapter closed. As Thebes celebrated its release, its gaze turned inward and forward, towards the promises of unity and wisdom. Its voice, once trembling beneath ancient riddles, now harmonized in songs of survived trials and anticipated triumphs. And there in the heart of Thebes, a new song began, drawing the city toward its next great chapter with poised, gentle assurance. The city of Thebes was abuzz with the news of its liberation, and the name on everyone's lips was Oedipus. His heroics at the gate, where he solved the deadly riddle of the Sphinx, quickly became the stuff of legend. The Thebans, long oppressed and fearful, now looked upon him as their savior. In gratitude, the city prepared to celebrate the deliverance from the creature that had haunted them for so long. The atmosphere was one of relief and festivity, as citizens gathered in the main square, eager to express their appreciation for Oedipus's courage and intelligence. The central square of Thebes, usually bustling with traders and citizens going about their daily lives, was transformed into a space of jubilance. Festive decorations adorned the temple facades and the streets, as the city's people came together to honor Oedipus. Music filled the air, and the joyful chatter of relieved citizens echoed across the ancient buildings. It was a grand spectacle, with the blazing sun casting long shadows that danced across the ground, enveloping the crowd in a warm embrace. The brightness of the day mirrored the hope in the hearts of the Thebans. As Oedipus stood before his newfound admirers, he was met with waves of applause and cheers. It was a feeling he had never quite experienced before, coming from a life where prophecy and mystery had long shadowed his journey. Theban elders, with solemn yet joyful expressions, approached him, their eyes reflecting both wisdom and gratitude. These were the men who had guided the city through its darkest hours under the Sphinx's curse. And now, they saw in Oedipus a beacon for a brighter future. Among the elders, discussions of prophecy naturally arose, for Thebes, like many ancient cities, was steeped in tales of fate and seers. The prophecy concerning Oedipus was of particular interest, prompting whispers and contemplations among the wise. These debates were not merely a matter of curiosity, but held significance for deciding the path forward. The alignment of Oedipus's destiny with the needs of Thebes seemed almost serendipitous, as if the fates themselves had guided events to this very moment. A moment of reflection swept over the assembly as they recounted the history of the city's struggles with the Sphinx. For many seasons, the creature had been a source of agony and fear, its riddle claiming numerous lives and casting a shadow over Thebes. It was as if a collective sigh of relief passed through the crowd, with each person silently acknowledging the burdens they had carried and the families that had suffered. Yet, now, they stood on the threshold of a new era, their spirits buoyed by hope and new possibilities. With heartfelt sincerity, Oedipus stepped forward to address the gathered Thebans. His words, though few, were laden with gratitude. He expressed his deep appreciation for the warmth with which they welcomed him and reflected on the profound honor of aiding in their liberation. As he spoke, the sincerity in his eyes captured the hearts of all those present, further endearing him to the city that now looked to him for guidance. Attention soon turned to matters of governance. The dilemma of Thebes leadership was a pressing concern, and public discussions began, considering the paths the city could take. The elders weighed the options, as did the citizens gathered around, who speculated and conversed animatedly. The word king was spoken in hushed tones, as the idea of Oedipus ascending to such a role was considered increasingly plausible. Oedipus, stepping back from the celebrations for a moment, pondered the journey that had brought him here. Memories of his departure from Corinth swirled in his mind, the echoes of the prophecy that had driven him away from the only home he had known. Now, here in Thebes, it seemed as if the enigmatic pieces of his life were aligning to create a new path. A path that, like the solving of the riddle, demanded courage and wisdom. As the day's revelries continued, the citizens of Thebes could not help but contemplate the whispers of kingship that filled the square. With their savior among them, hope was rekindled, and the future, once shrouded in uncertainty, gleamed brightly ahead. Discussions surrounding Oedipus's potential ascension to leadership evolved into a vision of a stable, flourishing city under his guidance. It was a vision shared widely, one that would set the tone for the chapters yet to be written in Thebes' storied history. With the fading light of the afternoon casting a golden hue over the celebration, thoughts began to drift towards the future. The possibilities were endless, and the people found comfort in the idea that their hero, Oedipus, might be the leader destined to guide them into this hopeful new era. As the music continued and laughter filled the air, Thebes embraced the promise of renewal, standing united in gratitude and anticipation of what was yet to come. The victory over the Sphinx had not only freed Thebes from its lingering shadow, but had also cast a spotlight on Oedipus, the man who solved her riddle. As the dust settled from the celebrations, the Theban elders convened to discuss the future leadership of their city. The monumental task of selecting a new ruler weighed heavily upon them, understanding that their choice would define the future of Thebes. In the past, transitions of power in the city had not always been smooth, often leading to unrest. Now they saw in Oedipus a unique opportunity, a man of intelligence, bravery, and ostensibly, destiny. Word traveled quickly through the streets and homes of Thebes, with whispers suggesting that Oedipus might be the best candidate to wear the crown. The citizens spoke of his courage and determination, qualities they valued in a leader. The elders' debates, at first filled with uncertainty, slowly gained a common consensus. Amidst the discussions, one question lingered in everyone's mind. Was Oedipus the person the prophecy had spoken of, and what influence would his fate play in his rule? It was within the dignified walls of the palace, with its marbled halls echoing the voices of the venerable elders, that a formal proposal for Oedipus's ascension to the throne was drafted. The proposal outlined the responsibilities and expectations of kingship, focusing on justice, wisdom, and protection. As they deliberated, the sun descended gently over Thebes, casting long shadows, a metaphorical reflection of the looming decision. Oedipus, aware of these discussions, proceeded with caution, knowing well the weight of such a responsibility. Despite public admiration, Oedipus faced an internal struggle. His initial reluctance was not born of doubt in his abilities, but rather rooted in the ominous prophecy that had haunted him since his youth. Somewhat wary, he reflected on the fickle nature of fate. The prophecy he had once fled in Corinth lingered in his mind, a shadow cast over the path of certainty. Could it be that the gods had woven these threads through time to lead him here, to this moment? These were questions that tugged at his heart. In the days that followed, Oedipus sought counsel with wise and influential citizens, advisors, philosophers, and those who had seen the rise and fall of kings. Their words affirmed what he had started to believe in his heart, that Thebes needed a firm hand, guided by the principles of fairness and courage he had displayed. They were hopeful that his reign might usher in a new era of prosperity and stability for the city long plagued by misfortune. However, the memory of his past and the prophecy's shadow lingered still. Oedipus considered the ramifications and spoke candidly with those he trusted, revealing his fears. Even in the face of these worries, there was a flicker of understanding in their eyes, encouraging him to rise above the dread of future unknowns. The city called for a leader ready to meet the challenges head-on. With a final decision weighed carefully against the scales of destiny and choice, Oedipus accepted the role as king. The public's approval was overwhelming, their voices echoing through the streets as they hailed their new sovereign. Preparations for the coronation moved swiftly, a testament to the people's eagerness and the faith they placed in him. As evening bathed the city in hues of gold and crimson, the coronation ceremony commenced at the entrance of the Theban palace. Dressed in royal garb, with a crown symbolizing his new role, Oedipus stood solemnly amidst the gathered elders and citizens. The air was thick with a sense of destiny fulfilled, the atmosphere a blend of triumph and solemnity. The weight of the crown was not just physical, it carried the expectations and dreams of an entire city. Finally, the crown was placed upon his head with the collective agreement of all present. Oedipus, now king of Thebes, understood that this moment marked not just the beginning of his reign, but a new chapter in his life. For all present, the image of Oedipus standing tall and resolute was a powerful one, an emblem of hope for Thebes' future. As the ceremony concluded and the gathered people began to disperse under the dusky, warm glow, questions lingered about what had truly set Oedipus on this path. There was an acceptance of the role he had stepped into, yet an awareness that the truth of his origins and the prophecy would inevitably shape the course of events to come. As the reign of Oedipus commenced in Thebes, an air of prosperity and stability enveloped the city. The people, once shackled by the terror of the Sphinx, now enjoyed the newfound peace under their hero king. With the chains of apprehension lifted, Thebes flourished, and the citizens praised Oedipus for his wisdom and foresight. The tales of his brave encounter with the Sphinx rang through the city, cementing his status as a figure of legend. However, as discussions amongst the Thebans turned to Oedipus's past, whispers emerged regarding the mysterious circumstances of his origins, casting a shadow over the bright era. This undercurrent of mystery gained momentum when a cruel plague began to descend upon Thebes. The affliction brought misery to the citizenry, with crops failing and sickness spreading. Thebes, in its desperation, found itself plunged back into uncertainty, and the people's trust in their newly crowned leader was now tested. With each passing day, the malaise appeared to grow, unbidden by the conventional remedies known to the Thebans. Oedipus, resolute to save his people, turned to the revered oracles, hoping to get guidance amidst the encroaching darkness. One evening, under the canopy of a crescent moon, he visited the oracle's temple, where an atmosphere of mystery and unease filled the air. Inside, the flickering sacred flames cast dancing shadows across the ancient tapestries lining the walls. The oracle, a figure entranced within the rhythms of foretelling, bore the message that would shake the foundations of Thebes. According to the oracle's revelation, the plague's curse could only be lifted by solving the murder of King Laius. This distressing truth seized Oedipus's core. The former king's death, long left unresolved, needed to be avenged to restore Thebes's lifeline. Oedipus, with his keen sense for justice and truth, plunged into the investigation, determined to unravel the mystery behind Laius's untimely demise. As the investigation deepened, Oedipus found himself encircled by revelations far more personal than he had anticipated. Conversations with seers and witnesses brought forth unsettling clues that interwove his fate with the fate of Thebes' fallen king. Shadows of his past began to surface, opening pathways to forgotten memories and early years he hadn't dared to question before arriving in Thebes. Piece by piece, the tapestry of his origins started to unravel. The coaxing hands of fate seemed to guide every revelation. Oedipus learned that the stranger he had encountered on his path to Thebes, leading to a fateful conflict, was none other than Laius himself. This truth colluded with prophecies he had long cherished as mere myths, breathing life into the chilling destiny spoken at his birth. In the quiet solitude of his chambers, under a sky full of stars, Oedipus reflected on the intricacies of the prophecy that had trailed him since infancy. Growing up believing the prophecy was nothing more than fiction, he now faced the cruel irony that it had guided every stride. The prophecy had forewarned of a son who would slay his father and marry his mother, thereby sealing his fate. Oedipus's dawning realization of his true identity broke over him like an unstoppable tide. Struggling to comprehend the weight of his revelation, Oedipus found himself burdened by the dual forces of destiny and self-awareness, suspending him between disbelief and acceptance. His identity intertwined with the crown he wore, framing his legacy in an unfamiliar light that he couldn't easily reconcile. As Oedipus grappled with each thread of truth, the layers of mystery surrounding his reign in Thebes transformed into a tale of prophecy and fulfillment. His journey revealed that even the brightest dawns are not without their shadows. Yet, amid the whirlwind of truths and self-confrontation, Oedipus resolved to confront whatever lay ahead for the sake of Thebes and its people. Beneath the starlit sky of autumn, with only the stillness of the night to accompany him, Oedipus grappled with the weight of revelations that threatened to drag him into despair. The oracle's words reverberated in his mind, unraveling truths buried in the sands of time, truths about his lineage and the dark prophecy that hovered over his life like an inescapable shadow. As he paced the inner chambers of the palace, the fiery glow from the hearth cast trembling shadows against the walls, echoing the turmoil within him. The depth of the prophecy's truth was staggering. It began as whispers of fate he never intended to fulfill, yet here he stood, on the precipice of understanding the cruel irony woven into his existence. Oedipus, the man who solved the Sphinx's riddle and saved Thebes, now faced a riddle far more personal and profound. Each piece of the oracle's revelation compounded his dread, each word a thread in the tapestry of a destiny he could not escape. Turning to Jocasta, his wife and queen, he sought solace, hoping love might soothe the corrosive reality encroaching upon them. But as their conversations unfolded, comfort was elusive. They laid bare the heart of his origins. The mounting evidence connecting him to King Laius, a foreign king whom fate had decreed, was more to him than a mere predecessor, cut through the fabric of his identity. In Jocasta's eyes flickered a dawning realization that she could no longer keep contained. Pasts, long sought to be forgotten, appeared vividly once more. Memories surfaced, unbidden, small scenes replayed within his mind, unwelcome yet demanding his attention. Encounters he had dismissed as coincidences now signaled the handiwork of fate, The prophecy spoken long ago had been inexorably binding him to this moment. His thoughts churned like turbulent waters in an unending storm, cascading over each revelation, not stopping until they splashed upon shores of undeniable truth. Jocasta, too, wrestled with her inner turmoil as the prophecy circled her mind like a vulture. A growing despair clung to her, shadows deepening her countenance. It was not only her husband's fate but her own history, a history once shrouded by the passage of time, that unraveled. Realization sank within her like cold iron. All she had hoped to bury had been unearthed with brutal clarity. In the fiery chamber, Oedipus confronted the crux of his identity, balancing it with the weight of truth. As heir to a prophecy, he battled with more than just familial revelations, but with the foretold curse that his life would bring wretchedness and ruin. This internal conflict seared his soul, fueling an inner fire that could neither be avoided nor extinguished. Tensions crested within the palace walls, pressures accumulating as each unspoken truth threatened eruption. Neither Oedipus nor Jocasta could turn away from the intrusion of fate. It pressed closer, relentless, as layers of deception and denial crumbled, leaving only the stark, tragic core of mythic inheritance. Even now, Thebes lay cloaked in an expectant silence, sensing the storm gathering on its horizons. As moments coalesced into an inevitable confrontation, Oedipus steeled his resolve, determined to face whatever tragedy the prophecy foretold. If his destiny demanded he stand as both ruler and damned, he would meet it without cowardice, tenacious in confronting the truth, regardless of its cost. Amongst the flickering flames and silent shadows, he found his course set, a path not of new discovery, but of acceptance. Despite the shadows cast by impending confrontation, efforts to prepare continued in silence, broken only by the inner dialogue echoing within. For Oedipus, understanding and reconciliation with his destiny became his forward march, as he prepared for whatever truths the dawn might bring. Each decision made, each step taken, was driven by the undeterred desire not for pride or power, but for clarity amidst uncertainty. With courage anchored in an unyielding will, Oedipus braced himself to tether and hold fast against the fiercer winds of destiny. Not alone in this battle, yet feeling singular in its journey, he awaited the morn, where truths would step into the light, lifted from the cloak of night. The haunting melodies of fate's refrain danced upon the cool night air, echoing through the chamber, as Oedipus accepted that the heart of his tale lay not only in what had been, but what was yet to come. The city's silhouette rested still under the moon's watchful eye, the night waiting in tense anticipation. As Oedipus contemplated the revelations amidst his studied reflection, the quietude carried the weight of untold stories, each waiting for truths to be spoken, for destinies to converge. Oedipus was poised at destiny's edge, a solitary figure in the fiery chamber, resolved in his acceptance, ready for the dawning toll that would soon rise with the sun. As dawn broke over the ancient city of Thebes, the horizon bathed in soft pinks and golden hues, Oedipus emerged from the shadows of the previous night's revelations. With the tranquil light of a new day caressing the landscape, he contemplated the full scope of his fate. Gone were the illusions of yesterday. In their place, he ushered in a somber acknowledgement of the prophecy that had governed his existence. Acceptance, though heavy, seemed his sole companion as he prepared for the burden that destiny had lain upon his shoulders. Oedipus's thoughts lingered on Jocasta, whose tragic end underscored the immutable weight of the prophecy. She had been more than a queen and wife. She was an unwitting player in the fateful narrative written long ago. The memory of her tragic resolution served as a poignant reminder to Oedipus of the forces at play that were far beyond the might of mortal interference. Her passing imbued the air with a sense of inevitability and profound sorrow, a testament to the inescapable nature of fate that loomed over their lives. The decision to leave Thebes unfolded slowly within Oedipus's heart, guided by the pull of self-exile. The city he had once saved from the clutches of the Sphinx now stood as a reminder of his own inescapable past. Walking away was not merely a choice, but a necessity. It was an act of penance and an attempt to shield the city from further distress brought about by his presence. It reflected an understanding that Thebes needed liberation not only from the monstrous riddle of the past, but also from the tormented king who could no longer serve as its leader. As he walked the path of departure, Oedipus reflected deeply on the journey that had brought him to this juncture. The roads he had traveled were lined with the echoes of choices, errors, and moments of fleeting glory. Each step felt as though it unraveled another thread of the intricate tapestry of his life. The twists of his journey, from acclaimed hero to a humbled man of destiny, spoke of the mysterious workings of the divine, the whims of fate, and the resilience of the human spirit caught within their grasp. In Thebes, preparations for a future without Oedipus were solemn. The city, now familiar with mourning, began to envision an existence where the legacy of their fallen king might transcend into wisdom and caution. Within the heart of Thebes, there was an unspoken grief, yet also a fragile hope, a belief in the city's ability to endure and rebuild. Their mournful reflections bore the chance for new beginnings, drawing lessons from the calamitous unraveling of prophecies that had sculpted Oedipus's reign. As the stories of Oedipus's impact spread through the city and beyond, they spoke of a man whose extraordinary wisdom had once vanquished the Sphinx, only to later succumb to the inescapable decrees of prophecy. His tale lingered as a testament to human fallibility, and the city recognized both the triumphs and tragedies of a man ensnared by his origins. Tales of his past and his eventual downfall invited introspection on the complex dance between fate and free will, urging others to tread their paths with awareness. Throughout Thebes, voices rose in quiet reverence, sharing each facet of the king's fateful story. Statements rang out about the courage it took to confront destiny, even as realization stripped away the familiar and comforting veils of denials. The undercurrent of understanding spread as whispers, serving as a lasting reminder of the lessons embedded within Oedipus's journey, an enduring tale of bravery in accepting one's truth, no matter how burdensome. The chapter closed with Oedipus walking away from Thebes, a solitary figure etched against the dawn's tender reach, his legacy lingering softly in the air. As he moved steadily onward, the city of Thebes faded gently into the past, its skyline kissed by the first light of day. For Oedipus, each step signified a form of closure, a transition into a sphere where contemplation thrived, free from the burdens of ruling and haunting reminders of prophetic chains. And with his departure, the tale settled peacefully, a narrative resolved, yet eternally echoing in the whispers of time.